Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. It is Indie Author August. I am here with a book review, and I'm excited to talk about it. I think every time I read something by this author, I get really excited. And you'd almost think like I'm a fanboy, but I'm really not. I don't know what it is. His books connect with me. His characters are fascinating. You can tell he's definitely grew up reading Sword and Sorcery, and it just comes through. They're such fun tales. And so I'm talking none other than T.H. Brandt. I read Salamander Shall Kindle, book number 1 in his Tales of Mayhem and Magic. I was really excited to read this. I have read and reviewed some of Tim's works now. Really like some of his characters. Just the plotting and pace and his pulpish style of writing just seems to resonate with me for some reason. Yeah, this was no exception. So let's get right into it. So some other author insights and fun facts about Tim when it comes to the culmination of Salamander Shall Kindle. Its origins are interesting because, as Tim described when I asked him about this, during the pandemic, during COVID, like everyone else, they had a lot of time at home. There was social distancing. He wasn't around a lot of people. He got a lot of writing done. He also had a stack of notes that related to Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that he realized he was never going to be able to play with his friends. And kind of a aside for that is that Tessa started to get into Dungeons and Dragons this summer. The local library here in town actually offered a summer program where they met once a week, and an older kid that works at the library, very nice kid that I've talked to on several occasions, was kind of like showing kids how Dungeons and Dragons worked. Tessa actually really liked it, and so I'm starting to do some research and ask some questions. I know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, but she's interested in it, so just an aside. But Tim realized that he had all these campaigns for Dungeons and Dragons that he wouldn't play with his friends, and so he used those as a basis to start writing some short stories. And when he started writing more, because he had free time, lo and behold, Salamander Shall Kindle popped out. And so that is a really interesting kind of origin story. Another question that I asked Tim as well is, your characters feel so vivid. Do you base them on real people, or is this completely your imagination? And Tim stated most of his characters come purely from his imagination. I've never been a character first kind of writer. I kind of disagree with Tim there. Obviously, he knows himself better than I do, but from my perspective, as much as I enjoyed his stories, there are some characters that I just want more and more and more of. Visago the Vile, Silo, Howlett, the Wizard, which we'll talk about shortly. Really great characters, and there's even a couple more that I thought were really great, even in their own rights. And so I kind of disagree with him there, but it's Tim. He knows himself better than I do. So he went on to say, so when it comes to my characters, they're usually built from a single personality trait that I try to nail as much as possible. He went on to say, I like them to be more like archetypes than relatable people, if that makes sense. Occasionally, I'll base a character on a historical or mythological figure, but I never base characters on people I know in real life. That would make it awkward when I inevitably kill them off in horrible and brutal ways. Tim, if you can make a character after Jake from Pulp Mortem, yeah, that would be really cool. And if you kill him off, I won't be hurt or anything. But anyways, let's dive right in and talk about Salamander Shall Kindle. It was published in 2021, of April of 21. It is obviously kind of a sword and sorcery fantasy tale. And so let's dive right in and talk about the summary of this book. So Salamander Shall Kindle is 3 tales, 2 that are shorter tales, kind of short story, maybe novella length, and 1 kind of nice novella, short, bookish length tale. And they're loosely connected. And it's really, really cool how it comes together. So the first one is The Vault of the Silver Sword. And it talks about three thieves. You have Roth, Bjorn, and Lynn. Roth and Bjorn are cousins. Lynn is what they call the Hunchback. And they're looking for the Vault of Arturus. And they're in the land of Dormir, which is where all the 3 stories take place. That is the land that Tim has created. And they're specifically after the sword of Sir Ichabod. And they encounter a lindworm and a ghostly knight that is covered in mail. And he's also searching for this famous sword. And the question becomes, for the premise of this, is will they make it through the maze, the enchantments, the booby traps, and find treasure, or will they find their doom? The second story is Salamander Shall Kindle. It is the pinnacle story of the three stories, the longer of the three, and it's a good one. You know, you're in Elmstead, which is in Dormere. You meet Howlett Ornstein, who is a wizard, and he's just finagled himself out of a sticky situation where he paid a race and a man by the name of Gulo and to go after obsidian lavender, a special flower that he needed for spellcasting. He evades them, finds sanctuary in his country residence, at least for a brief moment, and that is when Lady Gwynlyn and Lachlan, her brute bodyguard, show up at Howlett's door. Gwynlyn is the half sister to the king by the name of Ward, and the king wants an investigation into who killed Sir Brody. And Sir Brody actually ran a mine, a very profitable mine, and so they get Howlett to come with them and to do the investigation, to agree to do it. And they found Howlett, however, after they went and talked to Howlett's brother, who is also the headmaster of the Magus Academy. His name is Alder. And so Alder had told Gwynlyn and Lachlan to seek out his brother Howlett, that this was something in his kind of forte. And so Howlett is unsure of what his older brother Alder's intentions were. He hasn't spoken to Alder in over 7 years. And so Howlett begrudgingly takes on the case. He has always wanted to visit the sea. He had promised his wife before her passing that he would eventually take her there, and he never did. And so he feels a lot of regret. Howlett's a very interesting character. And so they take upon this case and they go to the mine area where Sir Brody was, and they encounter an evil presence. And it is, when they're at the scene of the crime, they realize it is a being known as a Dullahan. And so that's all I'm going to say about that one. Very, very cool tale. And then the third one is Goblin Town. And this was interesting because it's mainly around the perspective of Flack, known as Havesies. He runs Havesies Bar in Goblin Town in Ugat, which is kind of beneath a large crack in the mountain. It is a kind of underground goblin town. And there's a lady that comes to Flack's dilapidated bar, Havesies Bar, and she is looking for a goblin known as Ronma Greenfang, and otherwise known as Ron. And when the formidable lady leaves the bar, Flack searches out Ron, and things go from very quiet to very chaotic. This lady, this formidable lady, is known as the Huntress. And so that's kind of the premise of these three tales. Let's talk about what I enjoyed. These three tales are loosely connected. They're loosely connected through through basically characters, as one character will appear in the other one, and you kind of get this loosely connected, overarching kind of tale in this world of Dormere. And it's really interesting how Tim did this. The characters in and of themselves are what steals the show. Tim's plotting is great. The conflict, the reasons they're doing things, it all is really fun and everything. You have in the first story, the Vault of the Silver Sword, it's kind of a caper. There's booby traps. It makes sense. The second one, you have a wizard and you have to figure out an investigation. And the third, you have, who done it and why, and things get flushed out in the end. And then you realize some later connections to different things. It's all really kind of revealed nicely and very organically. So I like that, but it's definitely a characters. I fell in love with a lot of characters here in small and large ways. Howlett was just incredible. I did like Queel the Huntress. I think that is her name. And yeah, she's a very interesting character. What about Hallett's brother Aldir? We get mentions, but we don't get a lot of information. It's definitely has this mystique that could be something. But yeah, there is a lot of different touched at plot threads that could make into greater tales in this world. Definitely interested in book number 2, which we'll get to. But yeah, the things in the world of Dormir are very, very cool. The connections between the stories are really good. I liked a lot of the different characters and races we get to meet. Specifically, I liked in the second story, there is a character and his real name is much longer and harder to pronounce, but they call him Pat. And he is the supervisor of the mine. But some of his mannerisms, some of the investigative questions that Howlett asks him are just so comical. I really could just feel his personality and vibe through some of the interactions. I thought Tim did a fantastic job writing that. I really liked the goblins in the third story, the gob boss, that they call him, kind of like the mayor. And when Flack goes to the gob boss's house, he has to give a password, which is a poem, which we'll talk about in a minute. I really liked kind of the bioluminescence, the mushrooms that kind of light up this area. It gave me a lot of R.A. Salvatore vibes from like the Drizzt Do'Urden series, down in like Menzo Berezon. I thought that was really indicative of that. Green Fang, his connection to the outside world, and how this third story kind of loosely connects to other characters in the world of Dormir was really interesting as well. In terms of excerpts, I have a couple. One was a really kind of good one, and one's kind of a funny one. There was a really good one where Howlett told Gwendolyn this: a person's worth is not dictated by who they are, nor what they do with the life given, but by the contents of the person's heart. It is the love they have for one another, the compassion they give to those around them that truly makes them great. Howlett, for all his flaws, talks a lot about his wife that had passed, Marianne. He has a picture of her in his house. That's referenced several times. And yeah, the ending of story 2 is really well done. There is another excerpt I want to talk about. It is the poem for the password at the gob boss's, the mayor's house to get in. There's a doorman that slides the thing, kind of like in a John Wick movie, and asks him what the password is. And the password's a poem. And when Flack is in a hurry to try to find Ron, he's very put off by having to do the password because the person behind the door is like, hey, you know me. But the password is this poem. Skippy Johnson, bump on a log, lost his papa's favorite hog. Ain't it a shame? Skip's to blame. Skippy Johnson, bump on a log. It's hard to even say it without laughing. But yeah, it's a really cool like little poem thing. I just found it funny. In terms of criticism, I have one. And this is a fun, kind of not even a criticism, it's a fun fact. I was texting Tim as I was halfway done saying, hey, dude, I am really enjoying this. And Tim actually said to me, this was one of his weaker stories in his opinion. I disagree. I think this is actually really good. I really like the characters. I like the connection. So my only criticism, I think Tim undersells how good this book really is. So in terms of rating and overall, I give it a 4.7. It is one of the better books I've read this year. It is definitely in the top 10 to 15 books. I really had fun. It is a great modern tale of sword and sorcery. It has a lot of great elements. I really found it also interesting. Salamander Shall Kindle is a very interesting title until you read the story with Howlett and you kind of understand how that makes sense. The characters are they're just a ton of fun. It's paced well. It's a fast read. You're kind of just burning through the pages because the story's great. The characters are funny in their own rights. It's just really, really good. I will say too, as much as I liked book 1 in the Tales of Mayhem and Magic, Tim informed me, hey, book number 2, The Scarlet Down, features a tag team of Howlett, the Wizard, and Silo. And so I was like, yeah, let's freaking go. I'm definitely going to be reading that book very soon. Before you go, I wanted to leave you with this as well from Tim. When I asked, what advice would you give aspiring indie authors who are on the fence about self-publishing or writing, And he said this: just finish something, a novel, a novella, a short story, whatever. You don't have to crank out your magnum opus on your first go. Just write something simple that comes purely from your imagination. And if you read this, you realize Tim's imagination runs amok, and I love it a lot. And that's my review. I hope you enjoy this. Tim is a fantastic author. I have really been blessed to read his stuff, and I've enjoyed all of it. You should check it out. And that's my review. Have a great day.